Well, hello everyone. My name is Alaina G. Levine, and I'm president of Quantum Success Solutions, and I'm also author of a book called Networking for Nerds. And I'm really excited to be with you today to talk with you about presentation success and specifically how to prepare and present and network a winning poster. And I want to thank MRS for their support of this webinar. They are in the business of helping you succeed, and this is just one of the ways that they do that in giving you this type of professional development. My background is I'm a science writer, I'm a professional speaker. I have a business, as you know, called Quantum Success Solutions. It's a science and engineering career consulting firm, and I have spoken for MRS at the conferences before, and so I'm really excited about the concept of what a poster can do. And what a lot of people don't realize is that there's actually a lot of networking value that can be extracted from just presenting a poster. Some people think, oh, I'm going to present a poster, and they just look at it as a one-way communications channel. But in actuality, it provides a two-way communications channel and potentially even create a marketing campaign for yourself for you to find, land, create, and keep really amazing career opportunities. That's the power of presenting a poster. There's a lot more to it than besides just designing a really nice poster that people see and respond to, and also giving your elevator pitch. There's more to it, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is how to actually really leverage the fact that you're going to be giving a poster, and giving is the right word because you're presenting something to this community, and you're also going to be providing a way for you to learn about opportunities for yourself and for your colleagues and your team members and your peers and even your mentors as well. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about the preparation and the design of the actual poster. We're going to plan out a pre-conference marketing strategy. I'm going to give you examples of different types of posters that you could take as examples of good posters and potentially not good posters. And I also want to talk to you about how to design a social media strategy in advance and during your poster so that you actually leverage the heck out of it and really get the networking goal that it provides you. And then I want to talk to you about following up, because there's a lot to do with the poster. So it's not just design, it's networking as well. And remember, when I talk about networking, the word networking, I'm not talking about you trying to get something from somebody or you trying to mine somebody's brain for a job. That's not what networking is. Networking is actually the most beautiful and honorable thing that you can do, particularly as an early career scientist and engineer, because networking is about what can I do for you? What can I do to contribute value to your team, to your research group, to your organization, to your department, to your field. And so if you want to give an actual definition of networking, it's about a spectrum of activities that starts with that first point of contact, and that could be at your poster or it could be before you actually even walk into MRS and present the poster. But the point is that it starts at that first point of contact, and it's a spectrum of activities that aims, and here's the really nice thing about it, for a win-win alliance where we're both providing value to each other in various forms and functions over time. And it ends only when one or both of us drop dead. And that's the reality, and that's the honorable thing about networking, is that we really are trying to build that mutually beneficial partnership if we possibly can. And a poster provides you with the absolutely unique opportunity to be able to start and launch those really, really nice mutually beneficial alliances with different people. So let's talk about a poster. I just wanted you to know what I'm talking about when I say networking. Let's talk about a poster. A poster is not simply a poster. It's actually a lot more than what you might have even imagined. Yes, it is a summary of your research findings, but really when you think about designing the poster and presenting with the poster, a great way to sort of put into your mind of what a poster can actually do is to think of it as a graphically enhanced abstract. It is very few words. There's actually very few words on your poster, and I'm going to show you like how many words you should actually have on your poster. But what a lot of people think, misunderstand about posters, is that they think it's essentially their dissertation or their master's thesis or their honors thesis or whatever it is. They think that it requires a lot of words, like more than 500 on the poster, and as a result the poster itself just becomes words after words after words. In actuality, the poster is an abstract, which is approximately 500 words, approximately, usually not that many more. and it's enhanced with all sorts of different types of graphics. So the graphics, the images, are actually going to really help to tell the story. And the poster is like an advertisement. It's like a marketing document for you. It entices others to learn more about you and your problem-solving abilities. It's a way of communicating your value to the community and the way you solve problems and the types of problems you've solved and solves. And it actually engages. It's meant to engage them. So it's meant to catch their eye, the audiences, and it's meant to engage them to come towards you and your poster to learn more, to entice them to learn more. And it's almost like as if the poster is like a trailer and you're the movie. So it has to be short, it has to be concise, it has to have those images, but it's it's enticing the audience to want to learn more about who you are and what you could potentially do if you joined their research group, their team, their graduate school, whatever it is. It is marketing your expertise, and it's marketing your brand. And quite simply, your brand is simply your promise of value, and more specifically, your brand is your promise to deliver dependability, expertise, and excellence in everything that you do. Dependability, expertise, and excellence. That's your brand, your promise of value. So when you present your poster, people are getting a sense of what would it be like to engage you? What would it be like for you to be on their team? So you're promising value. You're promising how you're going to think about problems and solve problems and research and do all sorts of different aspects, pursue different aspects of the team-based project. And you're also trying to show them that if they engage you once, that they will encounter something very positive, an asset to their organization, and therefore they will want to engage you again. Because simply since brands are about promises of value, they're also about expectations, that I expect that if I see you have this great poster and you're presenting it to me in this poster event in such a positive, strong, ambitious, creative way, that I will, if I engage you further in the future, that I expect you will deliver on that promise of value again. That's the branding. It's really interesting. So what it does is it's marketing all of the elements of your brand, which includes your problem-solving abilities, your skills, your experience, your knowledge. And it's an invitation, honestly, to network and form alliances with other people, people of all walks of life and also all levels of their career. And really, when it comes down to it, you think about it, your poster is essentially like a large and a more detailed version of your business card. So when we're presenting the poster, when we actually have the poster, let's think about what the poster is going to be doing in this poster farm. And I call it the poster farm, where you present your poster, because it almost, to me, in a certain respect, reminds me of an industrial farming complex. So tons and tons of posters around. We need to be able to communicate our findings very, very quickly. So I call it a poster farm. So with this poster farm, when I'm presenting my poster, whether I'm physically in front of the poster or I just put it up, and I'm going to come back later for the actual elevator pitch, this poster must communicate my findings very quickly and concisely and grab the attention of potential collaborators as they walk by. So this requires us to have a very large font that can be easily read from the distance. We want to use easily followed text blocks as opposed to long, long chains of text, so that people can quickly read it and understand the concept, understand the context, and also be able to follow what goes from which section to which, right? A to B to C to D. That's a challenge with posters. Sometimes when people design posters, interestingly, they don't say which is the first text block that people should read, or they don't make it clear which is the first text block and which is the second and the third and so on. And so for people reading the poster, looking at the poster from far away or even close by, they don't know the order of the poster, and that's really challenging. We don't want to do that. We want to make it clear. Using text blocks, and I'm going to show you how to do that, using text blocks, we want to make it very, very clear how people can read our poster and what is the order of the different blocks. And like I said, it's going to incorporate those graphical elements, because what we're doing is we're telling a tale. We're telling a story of you and your research, you and your problem-solving abilities. Essentially what we're communicating is the problem that I had, the solution that I endeavored to pursue or came up with, and the results of those solutions, and the impact. So problem, solution, result, and impact. And the impact, of course, is what is the interest of the audience member? How is it going to impact them? What's the next question we can ask as a result of this project that you did? The ecosystem, of course, where you're presenting your poster, a poster farm, could be very, very noisy. It's going to be crowded. It's often during receptions. People are standing, people are walking by, and that's why you want to really be able to grab their attention quickly. And we're going to talk a bit about how to design the elevator pitch, because that's an important component of the poster presentation itself. It's not just the design. But let's talk about the design for a few moments. So we're going to prepare for the design, and I know it seems silly that here I am telling a bunch of brilliant materials science and engineering students to follow exact instructions when you design your poster. But I say it, and I say it almost comically, because of the fact that a lot of people, they do neglect to look at the exact specifications of how big the poster should be, what's the maximum width and depth and height and depth, yeah, as opposed to, you know, because it's a three-dimensional poster as opposed to a two-dimensional or a four-dimensional poster. What are the materials you should make your poster out of, right? How much nanification should you be using? There's a little bit of a materials joke for you. I'm sure you'll be enjoying that all day. But the idea is that people just don't follow those exact instructions. And as a result, their poster's too big for the board, or it's too small, or it's an electronic poster and they didn't present and prepare an electronic poster, or vice versa. And so I'm just going to say, just take another look at the specifications and follow the exact instructions. Find out what the dimensions are that are required in the maximum. Ask, if they don't make it clear, ask, should it be a landscape or a portrait? I prefer to do a landscape poster. I think it's easier for people to follow. Portrait you could potentially do as well, but just see if you have that choice, and I would recommend going with landscape if you can. Is it an electronic poster system, or is it a printed? And then, of course, once you know all these things, you need to know what's your budget. Because if it is going to be a more expensive poster, in other words, if you have more of a budget, you could potentially print out a couple of versions in advance to make sure that it looks good. I'm going to give you some workarounds in case you don't have that type of budget. You could print it on a better quality paper. There's a number of things that you could do. But you should find out what your budget is, and you can talk to your advisor or your mentor about that. And of course, what's your time frame, right? Because what you want to do is build a schedule for yourself in the design of it and allow milestones and timelines and deadlines so that you know, by this date I'm going to have this part done, by this date I'm going to share it with my advisor and my team, by this date I'm going to incorporate feedback, and then by this date I'll have it printed and ready to go. So what do you actually put on the freaking poster? What do you put on the poster? Let's talk about that. Okay, well, we start with a title, of course, and the title should be engaging, right? Well, that's the thing that draws people in immediately and from across the room. So it could be in the form of a question. It could be in the form of this is the result. It could be in the form of this is the problem we're trying to solve. There's a couple of different ways you could do the title, but the idea is drawing in the audience, getting them to come over to your poster so that they want to learn more about this. And then we're also going to list out the authors, of course, and their affiliations. Interestingly, some people forget to list out the affiliations. In other words, what university or what institution are the authors associated with. And then we want to ask, what is the problem? And you could actually, on your poster, you could actually do it in the form of the question, like what is the problem we're looking at? Or you could just have, the problem colon and title it out. But I just want you to be thinking about, remember, problem, solution, result, impact. So start with what was the problem that you were endeavoring to solve. And then talk to me a little bit about the methodology that you use to solve that problem or try to solve that problem. Because I also recognize that, especially in science and engineering, yes, you have a problem that you're trying to solve. Sometimes by the time you present your poster, you don't have a solution yet. You're still working towards that. That's the reality. I get it. And also related to that, sometimes you don't have a result. That's fine too. But if you can dictate to me what was the problem that you're trying to look at, and then what's the methodology that you're trying to use to solve it? So even if you don't actually have the solution yet, you can give me the different pieces of your story that show me how you're trying to solve the problem. So that's the methodology. And then tell me a little bit about your data. What did the data tell you about this problem and about this solution? And of course, if you can come up with a conclusion, which is the results of your solutions, that's going to be very helpful to list out. And then the significance or the relevance, that's the impact. What is the impact? What's the significance of this work? What does it mean for the field? What does it mean for the subfield? What does it mean for our understanding of this area of nature? And you could also even talk about what are the next steps, like these are the next questions we could ask, or these are the next questions we are asking, or we're looking at this right now, or we're trying to understand, now that we've understood X, now the next step is to look at X plus 1 with this different type of instrument. So tell me what the next steps are. On the poster, it is relevant and very important to include your contact information. Make sure you let me know how I can get in contact with you, because I'm going to see your amazing poster, and I immediately am going to want to hire you as an intern in my company or as a research associate in my lab. So I'm going to absolutely want to email you, so make sure you include your contact information. And when you are funded for your research, tell me who funded you. Give me the funding sources, and you can include the logos from your institution or your funding source right on the poster. That's totally appropriate. Now, the largest type on your poster, as I mentioned, is going to be your title. That should be catchy. I said you could convey your conclusion, but in fact, in conveying your conclusion with the title of the poster, you could also be asking the question of what was the problem you were trying to solve. That's totally fine. And we try to do our poster with a dark colored text, like black, on a white or a very light background. And the reason for that is because human eyes, and that's important, we're dealing with humans as opposed to non-humans, human eyes see best when it's black text on a white background. You may remember in ancient days we had these things called newspapers. Wow, what were those? Newspapers, right? And of course newspapers are all black text on a white background, because that's how humans read. They read much better when it's like that. So we're going to do that on our poster as opposed to the reverse. And we're not going to use all caps, and I'll get back to that in a moment. But the idea is that we do want to have our largest type, our title, on the poster. We want to use about a 60 to 80 point font, and my suggestion is to use what's called a sans serif font, which basically the serifs or serifs, I never know how to pronounce that, are the little sort of flourishes that you see on the tops of I's and T's, and you don't see them on the font that I'm using for this talk today. This is a serif. This is a sans serif font, so it's without the serif. The flourishes are called the serifs. And you see that, the serifs, you see that in, for example, the font called Times New Roman. That is very useful for reading very small text when you have a serif or serif font. But when you have a large font that's 60 to 80 point, you want to use a sans serif, because that makes it more legible from farther away. So that's just a sort of a suggestion that I recommend you do. On the actual poster, we want to use blocks of texts to tell the story. And we can start with the why, which is, again, this is just another way of thinking about organizing your poster, which could be the problem, right? What did I actually do, or what did I add? We talk about our methods, methodology. What did I find? What were the recommendations? So, you know, we were looking at it before, and on this side, on this slide, to look at how you could organize it, and this was just another way of potentially organizing your work, but thinking about it from blocks of text. And, you know, what if I told you that typing in caps does not improve your argument? I want to thank Don Luth of Penn State for this wonderful slide. You do not have to include all caps. In fact, none of your text should be all caps. Okay, so that's just a quick designer tip. Some more designer tips. Use PowerPoint. I like to use PowerPoint to design my posters. I find it to be the easiest thing. But quite frankly, if you have another program that is easy for you, it gets you the results you need, like Adobe Illustrator or others, go for it. I don't care. Whatever works for you is best. But remember, I told you this is a graphically enhanced abstract. It is not a dissertation. It is not a thesis. So the total number of words is going to be equal to what you'd find in an abstract, which is approximately 500 to 800 words total. Okay, that's it. no other words. We want to keep this light on words, and so we're going to avoid high density of text. As I mentioned, we're going to use a serif or serif font for the body of the poster, as opposed to a sans serif, which is going to be for the title. And then we're going to use lists for the text, as opposed to huge amounts of words. Like, in other words, blocks. We're going to use blocks to describe the outline or describe the order, but we're going to use a lot of bullet points as opposed to using prose. And since we are dealing with human eyes, we're going to avoid very dark or image-soaked backgrounds, and I'm going to give you some examples in just a bit. And we're going to watch our colors. And this is interesting because there are a lot of people who have color differentiation challenges. And for example, my uncle, he had a challenge differentiating between green and red. And so you did not want to be in a car driving with him if he could not tell which is the red light or the green light on the stop sign, on the stoplight. That was a reality for him. So there are a lot of people who have that issue. So what happens is that when you are presenting your data in these graphics, in these charts, what you don't want to do is only use red and green to differentiate between your data points, because then somebody who has the differentiation, the color differentiation challenge, they're not going to know the difference. So just be aware of that. And there's actually a large percentage of the population, comparatively, of the male population in particular, that has this issue. So we want to be very careful about that. So we're not just going to use red and green, red and green in our slide or in our poster. When we're differentiating data points, we're going to use other colors. And I really like colors are good, but oftentimes a really good rule of thumb, and this was the case with logos when people were designing logos, is if your logo cannot be produced in a black and white image, then with potential grayscale, then you might want to go back to the drawing board. And I recognize that rule of thumb is not exactly, one-to-one matching with a poster design, because there will be a need and a use for color and color differentiation in charts and graphs. But it is just something to think about, that if there's somebody who, for example, is completely colorblind, would they be able to understand what you're presenting? Something to think about, something to ask yourself as you're designing. The visuals help you tell the story. So we do want to include pictures and charts and graphs, but we want to make sure that they can be easily read from far away and that they are easy to interpret. Your pictures should have a scale bar and a caption that can be read. The caption is interesting to say to be read because guess what? Sometimes people make their captions in such a small font that you can't read it without a scanning electron microscope. I mean, you literally have to stand there with a scanning electron microscope. And I do carry a scanning electron microscope every time I go to MRS. I mean, that's just standard practice for Alaina, but not everybody does. And so if you're not handy, if you don't have a scanning electron microscope handy, or a telescope, or a microscope, or any sort of scope of any kind, make sure you produce a caption that people can actually read. It doesn't have to be in a 75-point font, but it should be readable. And remember that there should be a very specific reason for that chart or that graph or that picture to be on the poster. The poster itself is very limited in size, obviously, and it's very, very valuable real estate. So we don't want to waste it with like a picture of something. I'm going to show you examples in a moment. That's just there to fill the space. There's something else you could actually put in that space instead of just this extraneous image. Make sure that if the image is there on your poster, that it's specifically tied to the story that you're trying to tell. So now, I know you can see and you can hear that I'm really, really hilarious in my comedy, and I'm totally, totally brilliant in my science communications, but did you know that I'm also absolutely brilliant in my artistness, and I also make up words as well? Did you realize how great of an artist I am? I mean, look at this design layout that I did for you. Just because you're MRS students, I wanted you to have the best of the best of the best, so I took my time and I thought about how could I present a design layout that would make the most sense to you, but would also be artistically pleasing to the eye and would help you to question your soul, your very nature, and I came up with this, and I know you can't even imagine that I could, but I did. I did it for you because you're awesome. And so take a look at this design layout. This is your design layout for your poster, okay? We're going to start in the upper left-hand quadrant. This is why I like the landscape version as opposed to a portrait version. We're going to start in that upper left-hand quadrant. We're going to move down. Then we're going to go to a second column. Then we're going to go to a third column. That's it. It's as simple as anything. This is really easy peasy stuff. So this is how your design layout is going to be. But I've seen posters, and I'm going to share with you some in a bit, that do not follow this design layout and therefore make it very challenging and very difficult for the viewer, for the audience member to understand where does it begin, what's the next, where do I go next, what's the next piece of the tale. They just can't follow it. The order is completely out of whack. We don't want that. We want to make sure that people can understand where to start, where the next step is, and so on and so on and so forth, and of course where the conclusion is. Text sizes, as I mentioned, the title is anywhere from 60 to 80 point. The authors is about 56 point. Font, subheadings, 36 point. Body text, 24. Captions, lowest, absolute minimum is 18 point. I think you could even go bigger on that. So these are your points, your point levels for the different font, for the different text that you're presenting. Now, of course, there's a trend now. And this trend is just going to get bigger and bigger because there's a trend where people present electronic posters. And there's two types of electronic posters in my mind. So one is an electronic poster where they actually take your static poster, right, that you've designed in PowerPoint or Adobe Illustrator or what have you, and they project that onto a screen or onto some other flat surface. And you could potentially move back and forth from that static poster and pull up other things to project onto the screen too, or it just works off of the screen and it just stays the static poster. There's another type of electronic poster, and that is actually viewed on a screen, and so on a monitor. And so what we want to know is if we're going to be presenting an electronic poster, first of all, if we're given the opportunity to present an electronic poster, do we want to do that? How do we do it? We need to know how big the screen is, how big the monitor is going to be. Do we need to bring our own computer or theirs? And whether we're doing one or the other, we're always going to provide and bring with us multiple versions, a PDF, a PPT, an e-file. We're going to email it to ourselves. We're going to put it on a thumb drive. We're going to put it on our own computer, on our own tablet, and even a printed copy, even if it is an electronic poster. Different versions, because I guarantee you'll bring like 29 versions and 28 versions will somehow fail on the day of the event. So we do want to bring multiple versions. And what I do is I actually get there early. So if they say that my poster presentation is going to be from 6 to 8 p.m. and I'm supposed to get there, let's say, at 5 to set up, or I have another window maybe earlier in the day from let's say from 2 to 4 to set up, I will get there as early as I possibly can. As early as they will let me into the room, I will get there so I can set up and see how everything is going to move and look, and adjust the difference between the size of the screen and the size of the monitor. I might move the LCD projector back or move the monitor back. And I will ask whoever's there whether I have that flexibility at all. And I also want to do in advance, I want to find out, could I potentially zoom in? Could I potentially move from the poster to other types of formats of data that I might want to present? For example, maybe there's something really special that I wanted to share as part of the problem solving that I've done with this research project that comes in the form of a video or some sort of simulation. And so if I am able to, that's the beauty of electronic posters, if I'm able to present this other type of communications channel, I want to find out if I can. So I'm going to ask in advance, and then I'm going to prepare all those other different files so that on a moment's notice I could potentially zoom in, or I could click here and then we'd have a video, we'd have an animation. I could click here and I could give you more information about the data. All that stuff is very, very useful in telling the tale of your research, especially as you are doing this two-way street. You're engaging them with the poster, they come over and you start a conversation with them. And the more you ask them, or the more you tell them about your work, and you ask them about what they're interested in, they start asking you questions, and then you have all of this extraneous background information that you can share, and you're able to quickly bring it up and pull it up so that you could show it to them and really help them understand the depth of your creativity. That's really, really useful. So I do highly encourage you to look into, you know, pursuing electronic posters and then also finding out whether or not you can actually do the extra stuff, and how you would actually do it. But like I said, even if it's an electronic poster of some form, you do want to have printouts ready. So what I would do is I would print out my static poster on a sheet of paper. I'd have multiple sheets of paper so I could actually hand that to people. And I also am going to bring business cards. And my business cards, when I'm presenting it at MRS or any other conference, my business cards, very simply, and you can print them yourself. You do not have to spend a lot of money on this. They will say your name. They will say where you are in your life right now. So undergraduate, junior, material science, Department of Material Science and Engineering, the University of Arizona. So the department, the institution, you could potentially say, give 1, 2, or 3 areas of your expertise or your interests, nanofabrication, medical devices, CAD, and other related programming. So you could actually put that right on the business card if you wanted to. And then you put your email address, your cell phone number, and your LinkedIn profile URL. And that's it. You do not have to put a photograph of yourself because you're not a real estate agent. You're not selling houses, so you don't have to put a picture of yourself on your business card, but you do want to have that business card handy, because as you meet people, you want to be able to give them your business card, and it's really such a great way for people to know how professional you are. When I say you're a professional, you are. A professional, in my mind, is someone who is simply serious about their craft. They are serious about their craft in everything that they do, in the way they present, in the way they interact with people, in their attitude, in what they say, and what words they choose. They demonstrate their professionalism, and it's really professional to be able to go to a conference like MRS and present a poster and be able to give your business card out. And guess what? There is even a better reason to have a business card when you're presenting a poster. This is amazing. I'm about to knock your socks off, so don't freak out on me. This is going to blow your mind. So when you have a business card and when you're presenting a poster, what I personally do is on the back of my business card, I will actually put a sticker which puts the title of my poster, and you could do this if you were giving a talk as well, the title of my presentation, the date, the time, and the location. I put that right on the back so that if I meet you, let's say we're meeting at a networking mixer at MRS, and I say, oh, it's so nice to meet you. By the way, I'm going to be presenting my poster. Here's my business card. You flip it over, and on the back is the information about where your poster is going to be. I'd love for you to come. I hope you can come to see my poster. Wow! Talk about professional, and talk about totally appropriate self-promotion and self-marketing. That is absolutely appropriate and such a classy way to invite somebody to your poster. I really highly recommend that you do that. So you want to have business cards anyway, but when you are giving a talk or a poster of some form, to be able to have that information on the back that you give to somebody and say, by the way, and you flip it over, here's my information, here's where I'm going to be giving my presentation, I hope you'll come to my poster. That really goes a long way to solidify to the other person how serious you truly are. And it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter that you're a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, a senior, a graduate student, whatever it is, a postdoc, whatever it is, you can still do that on your business card, and it really does go a long way in showcasing what a talent you actually are, and to bring people to your poster and to draw traffic, which is really what you're trying to do. So think about those types of things. And one last thought about the animations and the movies and the simulations that you might show. Totally appropriate for the electronic posters. Just make sure it's nothing too distracting, right? Some final tips about designing our poster. Proofread it. Proofread it. Have yourself proofread it. Have somebody else proofread it. Ideally, even have somebody proofread it who's not in your research group or even in your department, and possibly not even in science or engineering. Why is this? Because I guarantee, Alaina's guarantee, that you and your team and your PI, your investigator and your mentor will look at the poster, and none of you will catch that you misspelled the word physics one time, or you misspelled your name, or you misspelled the name of the university, or you misspelled the word university. That you just won't catch it. So that's why I want to have a number of people looking and proofreading your poster to make sure we get that. We don't want to have any little flubs like that. And what I like to do is, and this is where, excuse me, this is where having a little bit of an extra budget handy, if you have, is useful, is I will print out the poster, life size, and I will post it in the office hallway. And then I will put some Post-it notes and a Sharpie next to it with a little sign that says, if you see a suggestion for improvement, please provide it. Excuse me. And what people will do is they will anonymously walk by and they'll see, oh, you could do this better, or this is not clear, or what if you move this over here? They'll write it on the Post-it notes. They'll put the Post-it note right on the poster with a little arrow pointing to the area that you can improve upon. You get some really, really good feedback. So consider doing that. And I always like to convert my poster into a PDF so I have complete knowledge of how it's going to look. And to check the formatting at the actual size, in case you can't print it out, you could always project the poster onto the wall and have people in your research group look at it on the wall with the Post-it notes to provide ideas as to how to improve it. Acronyms and jargon are totally fine. Of course, you're in science, you're going to be using acronyms and jargon, but what you do want to do, particularly with acronyms, is you want to define the acronym out before you actually use the acronym. So, for example, if you're going to be, let's say you go or have gone to my alma mater, the University of Arizona, which goes by the acronym UA. So if I'm going to be talking about the UA throughout the poster for some reason, I could start off by saying the University of Arizona, I put in parentheses UA, and then after that I can always use UA as the acronym. But do spell out the acronym, because particularly in your sub field, there are going to be acronyms that you and your team and your advisor use that might not be used throughout the field, the high-level field of material science and engineering, so you want to make sure that people know what it is that you're talking about. All right, so now let's take a deep dive into some interesting poster examples. And this first poster, let me point out, was designed specifically to teach people how not to design posters. So this is an example of a poster that should not be your poster. So let's look at this beauty, this gem, and think about what is it that could be potentially improved upon. So first of all, we have this really dark background. It's an image-soaked background of the star field, very difficult to read. We don't want that, right? We want a very light or a white background. We want dark text on the white background. Then the author chose to use a very unusual text and font for the title. He thinks that we're in the Star Wars movie, and as much as we love Star Wars, all of them, we are going to have a little trouble reading this from far away because of this weird Star Wars font. So we don't want to use that. He does include the acronyms, excuse me, the logos for the different funding sources, although it's very difficult to see against that black background again. Now he uses the blocks of text. That's great, but there's some problems here. First of all, the text is very small, so it's hard to read. Second of all, it's not clear which block we read first. He does have an abstract, but interestingly, the whole poster is supposed to be an abstract, so he doesn't really need an abstract on this poster. He has this block called Introduction, but I don't know, am I supposed to start there? Am I supposed to start at the abstract? It's not really clear. And not only that, but these blocks are very, very wide. So the sentences are very, very long, and there's not much room between the border of the block and the actual text itself, which makes it even more difficult to read. And take a look at that conclusions block. It goes almost the entire width of the poster. So you literally would be standing there and would have to physically move from one end of the poster to the other to read it, and then literally and physically move back to read it again. I mean, it would be like just not a good situation to have that, so we don't want that. He includes his citations, but he does not include an email address for himself or the other authors. There's no other authors listed. He doesn't even say which university he's with, so we need to include that too. And the final thing I would say that I was able to easily catch that's wrong with this poster is, do you see that picture in the left-hand bottom corner? It took me a while to figure out what that is a picture of. And remember, I said the real estate on the poster is very valuable, so we want to use it for very specific reasons. We don't want to have an extraneous image that doesn't tell the story or doesn't add any value to the poster, to the communications channel that the poster is. Well, what's that a picture of? I finally figured it out. Well, the poster is about pigs in space, and this, and by the way, that title is not that great. I mean, the pigs in space is cute, but the rest of it does not really help me understand anything. But that image, I think, is of a type of pig, a guinea pig, excuse me, type of guinea pig on a scale. So he's being kind of cute because, of course, the title of the poster is Pigs in Space, Effect of Zero Gravity, and ad libitum, feeding on weight gain in cavia porcellus. And I guess that's a little guinea pig on a scale since we're talking about zero gravity. Doesn't add any value to the image. It's super cute, but not useful for our purposes of telling a tale of our research. Let's get rid of it. And I'm sure as you look at this poster, there might be other things that you see that could be improved upon, and take it as a lesson. And again, the author of this poster, Colin Purrington, specifically uses this as a way to communicate how you should not design a poster, and you can take a look at his website, which I will have in my citations at the end of this presentation. This poster is very interesting. The title, I love the title. Again, this is a poster designed to teach people how not to design posters. The title of this poster is, "If you can read this, you must be nocturnal." Again, going back to the idea of human eyes. Human eyes are looking at your poster. And here, I am a human. I guarantee you that. I definitely am a human person. And I'm reading this, and I cannot read it. I cannot understand what this text is. It's so dark. Dark text on a dark background. There's so much text on this, you can't even, I mean, it's not even an abstract. At this point, it's almost like a paper. There are two images under the subtitles called results, but there's no caption, there's no scale bar. I don't know what these images are. They are green and red, so if I had that color differentiation challenge, I wouldn't be able to differentiate what those different data points are. There's just so much going on here. I mean, talk about an image-soaked background. This is a text-soaked poster, and there's really no design creativity here, and so it's very hard for me to actually understand what this person is trying to communicate. Getting a little bit better in this next poster. Cooling effects of dirt purge holes on the tips of gas turbine blades. So with this poster, what I like about it is we do have that light and white background. The authors do communicate what the title is. I think that's a good title. They include the logo for their institution. There isn't any email, so we could improve upon it by adding an email so that I know, where I could contact any of these authors if I had questions. They have the subtitles, they have the text blocks. I think in this case they actually could use a little bit more text and to tell a little bit more of the story. That image in the center is of it says of their caption, the large-scale turbine blade in a wind tunnel, but I think the image itself is actually hard to discern. Like, I had to look at it carefully to understand what the actual photograph was showing me. I really couldn't follow it. And then the charts that they have are very difficult to read because they're actually quite small. Even when it's a large poster, they're kind of small to read. And there's not really, I can't even tell. There is a caption, there is a scale bar, but it's so difficult to read, I can't even see what the units are. So that's a challenge if I'm going to be presenting this information. It's just not that helpful. This is another poster. This is a fun poster in my mind. Will manatees still exist in 2100? I was just wondering that myself. I was asking my colleague that because that's important to me. And what I like about this poster is, again, we have that light background, the dark text. We do include the email address of the person who designed this poster. It's easy to follow. It follows that plan that I presented to you when I presented you my great artist contribution to the world. So it has those three columns with the text box. It makes it very easy for me to understand the organization and the order, right? It says 1 introduction, 2 objectives. That's good. The discussion at the end there is sort of like the impact and the next questions. What are we going to do now that we know this information about manatees? What are we going to do next? And what I think could be improved upon are the images. So in the center column there, those charts and graphs are a little hard to see, even if this was blown up to poster size, and the images might not necessarily be discernible in terms of what their value is because of the way the data is presented. So there could be another way to present this data using a different chart or graph format. And also what's interesting about this poster, and I wanted to point out, I liked this design feature that this person did. In the center column, if you look carefully, you can see that all those little mini text blocks are in the shape of an arrow pointing to the relevant graph that they're referring to. But the challenge is when I've actually presented this talk as a talk and this poster is then projected on a screen in a very large format, it's very difficult to see these text blocks as individual text blocks in the shape of an arrow because it's a white text block on top of a very light blue background. So what I would recommend if you wanted to do something graphically interesting like creating a block in the shape of an arrow, which I think is cool, is put a border around it so I can actually see that. And by the way, I see that some questions have come in and I will answer your questions at the conclusion of this webinar, so thank you for asking them. Another interesting poster that I like this poster. Southern flounder exhibit temperature-dependent sex determination. Yes, I really thought that was the case, and I'm really glad this team brought that to my mind. So this poster is pretty good. I like the fact that they have the text blocks. I like the fact that they use the graphs to tell the story. They could potentially add value by adding a little bit more text maybe, just to tell a little bit more of the story. They jump right into objective, methods, results, conclusions. They acknowledge the team. They have the email address. I think, oh, they don't even have the email address, so they can improve by adding an email address, although they do identify the name of the university. But down in the bottom left-hand corner there, they have the histological analysis of this particular sample, but it's very difficult to understand what that is. So you would need a better caption than what I think they have there. So that's something to do. And this one, I like this poster here. Can suburban greenways provide high-quality bird habitats? And by the way, I specifically chose these posters. They're not in material science, of course. I wanted you to see if you were walking down the hall of a poster in an ecology or an environmental science or a zoology conference and you were not an expert in that area, would you be drawn in? How would you be able to follow the tale that these presenters are trying to share? So with this poster, what I love about it, again, we have the light background, the dark text, so it's easy to read. I like the graphic elements of the poster, the actual images that they chose. I like how they presented the text in terms of bullet points. I like how they use those blue blocks to present their subtitles, so it's very easy to see. Love that. The images that they chose, the pictures, I think they could improve upon, and of course that data plot that they have in the upper right-hand corner is a little hard to see, and it might not be clear what the understanding of the value is of that, and the same thing goes to the data plots in the center as well. So I think that could be improved upon too. Well, interesting, nice thing about this this poster is that if you take a look at the top, they actually include the website for this research. What a great tip. What a great idea to do on your poster. If people want more information, yes, they can email you, and here's my email address, but also here is the website for our research group, the work that we're doing, the next steps that we're trying to look into. Great idea. So put that in there if you have a website for your group. And finally, we have this poster, and this poster actually won a design award, so I wanted to present it to you, evaluating the consistency of experimental piezometers, I'm sure I mispronounced that wrong, using naturally deformed rocks. So this person, of these people, of course, are geologists, and I like how they use the text blocks. I like how they numbered their subtitles. They have their email address. They have the university's logo, although it's a little hard to see from this angle. And they do have the different images. I think they could improve upon this poster by adding a better caption for the images, but I think this is moving in the right direction. One other thing about this poster that I think could be improved upon is that they do include their results in that big text box, and they include the references cited, but again, we have the scenario where the references and the results go across 2 columns as opposed to 1. That makes it necessary for somebody reading that they physically and literally have to move from one side of the poster to the next. We don't want that. Typically, we want it to be them to stay in one position if they're going to read the poster. So I think that's a way that we can improve upon it. So when we're going to present our poster, we're going to print the poster in advance of getting to the conference and take it with you, because I cannot tell you how many times I have been to conferences with people who are presenting posters, and they anticipate, I will print the poster when I get there. I'll print it at the hotel, or I'll print it at the convention center, the Kinko's, the FedEx Kinko's, whatever it is, I'll print it right there in that city. And you know what happens? There's 45 people online, you are 45th, And when you approach the counter at that moment, after being online for 2 hours to print your poster, you know what happens. They run out of the paper, or the printer jams, or something happens. So I want to be totally prepped. So I'm going to take my poster with me, and yes, it involves schlepping it on the airplane or the train or the taxi or the Uber. Or if you live in Tucson like me, or on your horse. But the point is that be prepared, have it with you, take it with you in your poster carrier, take it with you. Don't rely on printing it at the place. Bring with you mini versions, which is the small printed versions of it. Have your business cards. Bring a sign-up sheet that you can post with the poster with a pen. People want more information, they can put their email address on there, and then guess what? Follow up with them. Because if they put it there, they're not just doing that to fill a paper or because they enjoy the fine art of writing on a piece of paper. It's because they actually are interested in what you've presented. They want more information, so you can follow up with them. And you can even bring copies of your paper. So if you've published your work, in addition to the poster itself, you could bring copies to give to the people give to the people you're presenting your poster to. And I like to bring a Sharpie and some white corrector's tape with me, because even after all of that prep, guarantee there will be one teeny tiny little thing that you wanted to improve upon, and the white corrector's tape really does the great job, and you can add the Sharpie to make any last-minute corrections. I also like to, when I'm presenting posters and even oral presentations, I will load up my poster, my talk, on my mobile device. I will have all of the related resources, such as the animations, the simulations, the extra data, even my paper, already on my iPad or my phone, even my laptop with me, so that if I do run into you, or if I run into somebody else that I want to talk to, I can easily pull it up and really just share it with you very quickly. It's such an easy way to email it and to get people excited about your poster and about your research, to have it ready and on your mobile device. So in advance of the poster actually going to MRS, I want you to build some buzz. I want you to start communicating to people that you're presenting this poster. And the poster is that advertisement that tells people how you approach problem solving and why you would be an asset to their team. So we're going to use it as a platform for networking, from finding new collaborators, potentially for even finding a job. So let's build some buzz in advance. Why not invite people to meet with you at the conference and invite them to the poster? So you got a few weeks before the conference is coming up, right? So now is the perfect time. Literally, as soon as this webinar is done, and I mean literally, like you guys, seriously, I want you to go through the MRS agenda, take a look at the scientific program, see who is going to be presenting at the conference, and start emailing some of those people and ask them for a 15-minute coffee appointment. Say, I'm going to be attending, I'm an undergraduate, I'm a graduate student at the University of X, I'm studying this, I'm going to be presenting a poster, I'd like to invite you to my poster, here's the time, the date, the location, and the title, and by the way, I'm really interested in your research. I'd love to learn more about how I can position myself for success in this field. Would it be possible to meet you for 15 minutes for a coffee appointment while we're both at the conference? Totally appropriate to do that. I really highly recommend that you do that. And reach out to people that, indeed, reach out to people who are on the scientific program, people who are actually presenting, but also within the MRS community. There's going to be people, even if they're not presenting this year, that come to the conference every year. And so you can reach out to them and say, are you going to be attending? Would you like to come to my poster? Could we meet for a 15-minute coffee appointment? And I always only ask for 15 minutes because most oftentimes people's schedules at conferences are really, really packed. They don't have time for an hour lunch, but they do have time for 15 minutes. So invite potential collaborators, invite people that you could envision yourself working with and for in the future, even people who are representing companies. And like I said, give out copies of your business card so that you can promote it at the actual conference. Your pitch is the actual oral presentation, the elevator pitch, or the 30-second or the 2-minute value statement that you're presenting, which gives a summary of what you did in your research. And what you want to do is prepare several versions of this pitch for people of many different types of backgrounds. And when you engage somebody, you start by saying, hi, my name is, I'm working on this research. What do you do? and you ask them what they do, that's totally appropriate. And then they could say, oh, I'm the head of the department, I work in material science at this company, oh, I'm a postdoc. Based on the answer that they give you, that will determine which version of your elevator pitch you would deliver. Multiple versions will allow you to address multiple audiences. So you're going to prepare a pitch that's for somebody in your sub field, right, who knows exactly the kind of work that you're doing. But of course, MRS being as big as it is, and the community being as big and global as it is, there's going to be people there who are not in your sub field. They're going to be in your sub field, so prepare a pitch for them. Prepare a pitch for somebody with a material science background. Prepare a pitch for somebody who's potentially an engineer who has a math sci or a math engineering background but may not necessarily be working in that field anymore. Prepare a pitch for a potential employer or potential collaborator, as well as the general public. And it will unfold naturally as you engage them in a conversation. It will unfold naturally which version of your pitch you should present, and you might even pick and choose pieces from different pitches. And this will get easier and easier. The more you do poster presentations, the easier it'll get to actually be able to flexibly change and alter your pitch as you go. But each one does respect the audience. It should be anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 minutes. Jumping into the problem, solution, result, impact, you could even start with the inclusion if you want, or the significance and the relevance. You're going to talk about methodologies, give examples, and ideally what you're trying to do is show them how you could potentially do this type of work for them if you were in their team. In addition to inviting individuals, what I do recommend is doing some more widespread appropriate self-promotion and marketing in advance of the conference. So MRS, of course, has a LinkedIn group, so you want to promote the fact that you're giving this poster on the LinkedIn group, promote it on the Facebook group, tweet it out, and tweet it out a couple of times at the conference, in advance of the conference, and at the conference, using the conference hashtag, using the association, of course, their handle, and your own. Email potential collaborators, and if people can't make it, if they're not going to be at the conference or they are just stocked full with their schedule, you could always offer to send them a PDF of the poster and ask them, oh, that's too bad that you're not going to be at the conference, or it's too bad that your schedule won't allow us to meet. Would it be possible for us to make a phone or a Skype appointment in the weeks after the conference? Or, of course, because the conference is happening towards the end of the year, you could say, after the new year, would it be okay if I reached out to you? I'd love to still have a conversation with you by phone or Skype, even if we're not able to do it in person. Totally, totally fine. When people approach, smile, be welcoming to them, shake their hand, give them eye contact, say their name, say your name. Remember, you have the advantage for networking because you have something to say. You have a predetermined package of information that you want to share with somebody. That gives you an advantage because you already know how you're going to fuel the conversation. It's going to come from the actual poster and the topic of the poster. But be ready to explain anything on the poster. Any data, any word, anything that you put on there, people can ask you about it. And there's 3 types of audience members in addition to the typical audience members. There's 3 types of audience members that may approach you at your poster that I just want you to be aware of and be ready to interact with. So the first group of audience members are what I call the secret treasures or the hidden treasures. So at a lot of conferences, what happens is if I go to the conference, I might actually bring my partner with me. So he or she would come with me to the conference, and especially at a poster session, which might be happening during a reception, I might bring my partner with me to that reception. So we're together walking through the poster farm. And I come up to your poster and I say, oh, what a nice poster. And you say, oh, hi, my name is, and what's your name? And I introduce myself. And maybe I say, and this is my partner, but I don't really go into detail about who she or he is. But I am clearly the material scientist, or I am clearly a material scientist, so you start talking to me. Well, you don't know who my partner is, and this is why I refer to him or her as a secret or hidden treasure. They could be the head of a company, they could be the head of a department, they could be head of a university, they could be looking for new collaborators, new potential students, interns, co-ops, you name it. They may not speak, and then you just only speak to me, but they actually could present you a very amazing hidden career opportunity. So Since we don't know who the partner is, if they might not have introduced themselves or made themselves known, you still, as the poster presenter, you still address them. So if I'm presenting my poster, I'm going to look at you and I'm going to look at the person next to you. I'm going to address both of you. I'm not just going to talk only to you and literally only look at you. I'm going to look at both of you. And I'm going to include your partner, whoever that person is, in the conversation and engage them too, because I don't know who they are. And I'm going to be as respectful as I am to them as I am to you. So that's the secret or hidden treasures. Number 2 type of person that you might encounter at your poster are what I call the aggressive inquisitors. These are people who, they look at your poster and they just want to ask you questions that don't include your data. They want to ask you questions that clearly you don't know the answer to based on the work that you've done. They just want to frustrate. That's really their goal. They have no interest necessarily in really helping you. And they are aggressive and they are asking you questions that you just cannot answer. And we're still going to be respectful to them because we are on stage, people are watching us, and we're going to say, thank you so much. This, unfortunately, is not part of the data that I was pursuing, or this is not part of the research scope of what I was looking at, but I'd be happy to follow up with you in the future. Or this isn't something I've done, but actually what I did do was X. So you then remove yourself from the conversation by actually talking about something that you did do. And the final type of audience member that you might interact with are what I call the whack jobs or the wackadoodles. These are people who think that Galileo was wrong, Einstein was wrong. They've written a book about it in which they talk about Newton and Galileo and Einstein and even spell their name wrong. And they just want to talk to you about how they have an idea about how the world of material science will open us a gateway to another dimension where we know for a fact right now, the speed of light does not exist. And so we're still going to be respectful to the wackadoodles. We are going to thank them for their question. You can say, this is not part of my area of expertise, but I really appreciate you being here. You could even say, I could get your contact information and follow up with you later if you want. But we're still going to be absolutely respectful and professional with the wackadoodles. Final thoughts, we're going to be professional, of course, in everything that we do. There's no small posters, only small presenters. In other words, really, really leverage the fact that you're giving this poster to capitalize on it and to communicate as much value as you possibly can, not only about the work that you've done, but about the type of worker that you are. And if you have to step away, leave a note when you're going to be back, leave a note when you're presenting, polish yourself up. You are on stage here, so the metaphorical stage, so wear appropriate clothing, right? So don't look like you just came in from the lab or the field or from hiking. Be a little bit more polished in your presentation. It does not mean you have to go out and spend $7,000 on a four-piece as opposed to a three-piece suit. You can simply wear a nice button-down shirt, a nice pair of pressed pants, or a nice skirt for the ladies, no jeans, and a nice pair of shoes as opposed to sneakers. Just look like you really are taking this seriously. And the next person that comes up could be essentially interviewing you for a job, so you want to think of it as a job interview. In perpetuity, your poster will continue. Yay! So post it on your LinkedIn profile. Make a note of it on your CV. This is a formal presentation you've done, so now you can put on your resume or CV that you have done a presentation at the MRS conference. Title, date, location, time. Well, you don't even have to put the time, but the point is make sure you put it as part of your permanent record and put it on your LinkedIn profile that you gave this poster. Offer to post it in your department so when guest speakers and guest lecturers and colloquium speakers come by, they'll see it. Post it on your blog. Use it as a business card, but bottom line, it's now part of your permanent portfolio. That is really fantastic. These are some acknowledgments. So these are some of the different websites and resources that I approached to help me put this presentation together. And I want to thank you so much. The key thing I want you to point out in a summary as it relates to posters is that people think that I'm going to give a poster and the poster, quote unquote, the poster presentation exists only on the piece of paper. That's the entire thing. But in actuality, the poster presentation consists of the design, it consists of the pre-conference marketing that you do, it consists of the elevator pitch, the actual words, the oral presentation that you use to accompany the poster, and it also includes everything that you do following up past the poster. The poster is an effective and totally appropriate and common marketing channel that scientists and engineers use to communicate their problem-solving abilities, their skills, their brand, their promise of value, and it's a way of marketing yourself to potential employers and collaborators. So I want you to look at your poster that you're going to present at MRS as a really unique and exciting opportunity to showcase how brilliant you are and what an amazing asset you would be to any team that was lucky enough to engage you. So enjoy your poster presentation, enjoy the conference. This concludes the webinar. I would like to thank MRS for their kind sponsorship of this webinar. I would like to thank you for your kind attention. Not going to wish you good luck at the conference or in your career because you don't need it, but I will say thank you very much for being here. It's been a privilege and an honor speaking with you, and I wish you all the best in your career adventures. So this concludes our webinar, and now I'm going to stick around to answer any questions that people might have. So thank you very much.